I think that this is an instance where I think he came in and shut the border, which was what you
get injured or killed. So I'm more concerned. Here you are as well when you raise that issue.
Of course, of course, it's insane. It's why most Americans disapprove, right? Because it's excessive and inhumane and awful.
I would like to propose that even if I were in the minority and approving of what ICE is doing and making all kinds of arguments, accepting the arguments that the administration is making, accurate or inaccurate, and I'm not suggesting what is and is not, because I don't know on some of the claims that he's making. It doesn't feel right when he says 70% of those being deported are criminals, and I get in quick succession let's put our focus on something unduly. It's possible, but suspend the vehicle stops for a minute, take a breather, take a look at it, and come out with a conclusion. Maybe we're doing everything right. Reinstate them. Or maybe it's a good practice, but we have to modify to restore public confidence in the manner in which immigration officers and agents act on the streets is almost immediately and publicly countermanded by the President of the United States, who overrides the decision on truth-freaking social offices stops once again. Move to give the population some confidence that they are reviewing this. Why not let it play out? Why is it so important for him to insist in such a public manner?
That was a de-escalating move. I think that and there was some prudence there, right? It showed people that he was taking this seriously and the excesses seriously. I agree with you. I think he's doubling down, and I think that's more people. I think more people will be harmed, and ultimately, yeah, this is not what Americans want. If you look at public opinion is clear. It's not. Americans are not for this. Right? It's not what they signed up for.
I want those traffic stops, and I don't care what the experts say. My God, it's my decision. I'm the president of the United States, and we're going to have these traffic stops. Allen, followed by Marshall. Believe it or not, ladies and gentlemen who are uninitiated, the sound of silence from Allen's microphone is a good thing because Allen is a sole proprietor of a small business in Texas. And when he is not answering the call to the microphone, he is answering the call of a customer. And that means moolah shmoolah in Allen's pocket. And as I always tell him, business comes first. Clubhouse comes second. And Scott, I passed that information along to another person who was a CEO of a company who had to make the same difficult decision. And I think he's having a dickens of a time recovering because of the surgery and the manner of the surgery. He has to learn to walk all over again. So I feel, to quote one of your favorite presidents, I'm sure, I feel your pain.
Okay, that's good, Gary. Yeah, Gary, I think there's two elements at play here. I think there may be some 9 times out of 10 will not turn out like you intended.
Stopping some guy on a bicycle. I mean,
Yeah,
I could have gotten a little tune-up there. Could happen.
I can tell you an instance. I used to run a state police will go out and they'll do targeted stops, and they're just looking to pick up stuff that's normally not taken in by the locals. Why I get in this one area at a way that, I told the guys, they're just kind of snarking back and forth. And I said, well, guys, I said, you know what it is here? I said, sometimes you get beside me, on the other hand, was this guy. He's deciding he's going to show the state police, what a macho guy he is, and he's whooping at them and stuff. And when I got through with what I was doing, I explained to this, I could make this work. And I said, I got to make truck payments. I said, it wasn't a matter of me trying to do anything other than survive. But anyway, the guy, he said, Mr. Wine, he said, but, it went smoothly. On the other hand, this guy beside me, he was just like me. They caught him, and he's wolfing, and he's getting an entirely different reaction. Now, I'm not saying you got to commit every law enforcement, but I'm saying the manner and way that you interact with these people can bring a lot of different responses. And the things that we're seeing people running up in these guys' faces, wolfing on them with a bullhorn and different things, if you think that's going to get a good response and you're not going to jack these guys up and they're not going to be face or something like that, and all you're trying to do is get a YouTube moment. So this kind of stuff, I think
these new cases that bring this to light again today, Steve, that's not what was happening. There were no bullhorns or mace. There were actual
wolfing on them, they're going to be in an agitated state to start with. Does that justify the shooting? I don't know enough about it. I doubt that it does. But I'm saying the confluence of these two factors, and I've heard this before, and this is probably correct because they're trying to ramp up so quickly to fill spots. There probably is a training issue here, and calmer than someone that's just been thrown out after I don't know how long they take to train these guys. So there may be an element to that, but the general public, you go up wolfing on someone that feels they're in a dangerous situation, you do it continuously, you're not going to get the best reaction. And especially if you truly believe that these guys are under-trained to begin with. So long and short of it, I think it's a confluence of two.
Because it's the 47th president. It can't?
I think
the training period has been trimmed down from like a couple of months, like 6 weeks or something.
150 days to 47, gentlemen.
No, see, I heard the 47 days was more of an estimate. I looked that up and I was not able to find any verification for it. Because I said the same thing about 6 months ago and I was wrong.
Well, and here again, the scope and scale of the operation that they're trying to do. I ran into this on some work I've done down here on gas pipelines too. That the scale of the project and the number of people able to carry it out. And to be honest, there's some unqualified people out there doing the job. So anytime you scale up and you scale up this quickly,
Obviously, killing somebody who's not the subject of an investigation is the wrong way to go, right? But like, we don't. For the guy in Houston, from what I heard or was reported, the guy in Houston tried to flee the cops, which Gary addresses in the beginning. We don't shoot speeders or people that flee, right? So that indicates that somebody pulled their weapon a little too.
that you mix the younger guys or the less trained guys in with seasoned professionals so that you'd have the pros leading the unit. That seemed to me the way you'd want to do that. Where, like, if you're going out, you'd have a guy that's been there 10 years, done it. I think it's like 4 to 6 months.
Yeah. So during that massive hiring blitz, then it was 47 days.
We don't send anyone to an academy without a psychological profile being run on.
I'm with you on that.
So they do psychic evaluations on prospective ICE agents. It's supposedly a rigorous pre-employment medical and psychological screening to ensure that they possess the emotional stability, mental resilience, and judgment required for federal law enforcement duty. That's what I'm reading now. I'm presuming what I'm reading is accurate. If it's not, somebody could correct what I'm reading, but that's what I'm told. So Steve, we'll go to Bluey, followed by Jules.
Thank you. You know, I've been reading your Substack, and I'm going to tie your most effective. If someone says they plan to kill you, you should believe them. And I think everyone in the room should read your Substack, and I think community calling for people to read. Figure out a way to obstruct them, figure out a way to drive away. The progressive, or certain members of the progressive community.
Who said they were told them to drive away?
But Marshall, please let me finish.
No, you need to answer that question.
Okay,
Who said they were going to drive away?
On X right now, okay, if you want a source.
Yes, I want to. Who told bunches of people to drive away from the cops?
On X, I'm going to read this to you, please, Marshall.
From whom?
Members of the progressive community advise passive resistance.
Running away is active resistance.
An honest observer can find many examples of people getting advised.
You're the one making the claim, not me, which means you're responsible.
You can't expect me
to. The messenger chat and post things in the messenger chat.
I will post it in the messenger chat. Okay, everyone in the room is invited to go to the messenger chat and see whether I've substantiated what I said. So,
and by the way, to your plug, which I appreciate, everybody in the room is invited to the messenger chat to see what I wrote on Substack. It's linked there.
It's excellent. So basically, my read is that the progressive community of America, they have beliefs. They believe in what they believe, and they believe that resistance. I'm not going to debate with progressives whether it's ethical to resist ICE, but I will tell you that Chairman Mao wrote a book that said that the secret to having a society in revolution is to provoke the government into killing a lot of the rebels, because the more of the who studied why Chairman Mao was so successful in his revolution will say that was every fair-minded ethical person in the room should research this, because I think there's ample evidence that our friends in the progressive community are deliberately provoking ICE into committing these shootings, because they believe the more innocent people shot by ICE, the more it helps the progressive community in the upcoming election. And I will close by saying, and I want to normalize using less than the allotted 5 minutes. You don't have to use your full 5 minutes. You can get your point across succinctly. The room agreed, but it turns out the majority of Hispanic men in America did vote for Trump. And they voted for Trump because they wanted mass deportations.
The majority of those who voted for Trump. Not the majority. There's a difference.
Okay,
if you look at the actual voting population.
Hispanic men, no other demographic. So just let me finish, Marshall. We've gone through this in other rooms. Okay, everyone in the room is invited to just go to Google and say, who did the majority of Hispanic men vote for? I submit the majority of Hispanic men voted for Trump because they want mass deportations. And mass deportations benefit the Hispanic community. And I'm going to land my plane here, so don't interrupt me, Marshall. because of mass deportations, the rents in Hispanic neighborhoods are way down. Everyone in the room can see by Googling it, landlords complain that rents in you deport millions of people, there are a lot of empty apartments and landlords lower rents. So I will close by saying that those people who are against mass deportations are defying the will of the majority of Hispanic men. And if you're against mass deportation, proof, and I'm sick of Marshall interrupting me, and I'm done speaking.
That is an interesting argument, and I don't. Aggressive organizations. That's painting a group of people with a broad brush, and I think it's accurate and prudent to suggest that we see which organizations to which you refer. Not that I'm questioning your veracity, but I think people need to be able to suss that out. And in some cases, it may actually be worse than you suggested with some learning from their own pronouncements as recently as a summit that the Democratic Socialists held last night, that they are not interested in working the legislative process to say by whatever means necessary. So there's starting to be a difference between being a socialist and a communist. And there's a difference between being a progressive and a socialist. But there are organizations that profess to be socialist organizations that are gravitating toward policies that are closer aligned with the socialists. I will say that the preeminent organization that has been advising people, not to say that people are not influenced by other organizations, of course they are, but the preeminent organization that has been advising people on how to respond if approached on the street by and here are the three things the ACLU tells people, and I think that these are prudent suggestions, at least from the ACLU. If stopped by ICE in public or on the street, ask, and by the way, they hand out cards to people in targeted neighborhoods. It's a wallet-sized card that you can carry, and I believe it's in multiple languages. It says, ask if you are free to go. Ask the agent, am I free to leave? If they say yes, calmly walk away. 2, exercise the right to remain silent. You do not have to answer questions about where you were born, your citizenship, or how you entered the country. 3, show valid documents only. If you are a non-citizen over 18 and have valid immigration documents, you should show them. However, the ACLU strongly warns never to provide fake documents or lie, because that would be against the law, and you would be putting yourself in legal jeopardy by doing so. Jules, followed by old Raj.
The ACLU, but I'll come out and say it. Not what you said, Gary, about what they're, what they advise people, the history, and just what the organization
I'm not.
Getting back on topic, you brought up a good, undertrained. The ICE is undertrained. By the way, ICE is a government agency, a law enforcement agency that we should all give our total respect to, like you did, Gary, or like you do. But I think they were undertrained. And let's use it 47 days was the amount of time they were trained. And it takes 5 months. So let's say 47 days, 5 months. Okay? So within that period of time that ICE wasn't available, between 47 days and 5 months, how many children are going to be raped? How many children are going to be killed, or grown-ups? Even if they're 10, if 20, 30, 40, who knows? How many are going to sell drugs? Fuckers out of the country.
What about the non-illegal aliens who are committing these crimes at a greater rate, not only in numbers, but in per capita than the illegal aliens? Do you want those fuckers out of the country too?
Who are you talking about?
The native citizens who commit crimes at a greater rate.
The question I asked was, what about the non-illegal aliens who are committing those kinds of crimes, not just in greater number, but in greater numbers per capita than the illegal aliens? Do you want those fuckers removed from the country?
I want them in prison. I want those fuckers in prison. If they came here illegally, I want those fuckers.
Like if I had done it, I'd get imprisoned. So if some person who's here, quote unquote, illegally does it, why not afford them the same opportunity to be incarcerated as I would be? Why is he get off the hook and then you deported?
Because the floodgate, if it was a normal illegal alien, I might agree. And what I mean by normal, floodgates were opened with hundreds of, with millions of illegal aliens.
Right, but the majority, vast majority of them, in spite of what the president says, the statistics will show we're not criminals coming across the border. And so what? So they're here illegally. It doesn't matter if you're acting be incarcerated, and if you're acting inappropriately, I would agree. You need to be incarcerated. Why do they get a ticket out of jail? Why do they get to pass go and not go to jail first? If this was a monopoly game, why are they allowed to go back to their home country? And if you or I do it, we have to be incarcerated for it.
Well, some are incarcerated first and then deported. I mean, how much jail space do we have? Well, I want all those fuckers out.
Well, apparently a lot of jail space.
How much jail space do you want?
Building jail space for the migrants. So I guess we got a lot of jail space. So might as well use it.
We don't know if we're putting migrants in there.
I told you had to wait your turn, and you weren't listening. And maybe yourself as an American-born natural citizen. The English that comes out of my mouth. Jules, go ahead.
Well, okay, you were making a point. I just want to get rid of those people that don't belong in this country. That's my point. And we handle our criminals in a certain way too. Unfortunately, I don't even know how sanctuary cities are still legal. I mean, where's the legality of that? Why doesn't that go to the Supreme Court?
They're legal is because on minor crimes they don't call federal enforcement. On things like murder, they always call federal enforcement. I only know this because I looked it up. So things like people who are murderers, they always contact federal agents about it.
always.
Well, okay, Marshall, but that's your MO, so that's okay. I just want the matter of
I
country.
butted in because I'm.
It's okay. You answered my question too. So, but I don't know. I think if you spoke to an audience, Gary, of families of victims from illegal aliens, rape, murder, and all those horrible crimes, I don't see how. I don't even think you'd be able to speak to that.
For the individual crimes, they get the statistics don't give the victims or the families of the victims any solace, knowing that But I'm just saying, if you want to throw people out of the country because they commit heinous crimes, then why not throw you or me out of the country if we commit heinous crimes?
Because they didn't
go to prison, faggot.
And how about what Governor Walz just did? What was that? He let a rapist go who was in prison, so he wouldn't be, extradited to another country. I mean, you're hearing these crazy things. It's just insane how we treat them. I don't think they should be treated as Americans. Our American criminals should be treated a certain way, and illegal aliens should be treated another way. I give statistics. I don't even question your statistics, but I think I can because. Now separating illegal people from illegal people who murder, illegal people who just illegal people who rip off the system and get benefits they shouldn't be getting. Why are we doing that? Illegal is illegal.
We discussed earlier is something that I think is up to debate when it comes to the term illegal migrant, but I want to talk about this.
Why? Why is it up to debate? Isn't it
by the way it's used, by the way the term is used. You might argue that if a person is in the country undocumented, that automatically makes them illegally in the country. Others would say they both positions. I'm not arguing one way or the other. I'm just saying that's why we have a problem, just like on something else we discussed earlier. When we were talking about the opening of the Strait of Hormuz, it's open, it's closed, it's open, it's closed. What's the definition of open?
Hello?
Consensus in this country over what it is to say a person is in the country illegally.
Gary, you brought up a good point. Just the definition of things. Is it open? Is it closed? Well, the answer is the word isn't closed. It has to be expanded. It's closed because. It's open because. You just can't say is it open or closed. And that's probably the answer to a lot of the debates we're having. It's not fully developed what the question really is. Yes, the ships going through that are getting rocketed by Iran if it's open or closed.
I don't know what. I don't know who's telling the truth and who isn't when it comes to that. Anyway,
I'll tell you one thing: it's dangerous. It's open or it's closed.
Well, I know we're not talking about the Strait of Hormuz. So here's what Tim Walz. I just want to go to the records to explain what Tim Walz did. He and the State Pardon Board granted a pardon intended to block a man's deportation. It surrounds a guy named Tao Lu Vang. This is from the New York Times. A 42-year-old Laotian national convicted of criminal sexual conduct in 2006 for abusing a 10-year-old girl. Vang had originally avoided prison through a plea agreement, which, by the way, is another issue that defies understanding. You mean to tell me that he abused a 10-year-old and was
Repeatedly,
able to
by the
bring it
way.
down to where he didn't serve any time?
That's right, repeatedly.
But anyways, he had originally avoided prison through plea agreement, but was given a federal deportation. I don't think anybody would argue that that deportation order was out of order. The state prison pardons board of pardons, which consists of the governor, the attorney general, who happens to be Keith Ellison, and the chief justice, Natalie Hudson, voted unanimously to grant Vang a pardon. According to the New York Times, the primary factor in the state's decision was a letter from the victim herself, who stated she had processed the trauma, made peace, forgiven Vang, and explicitly requested the board grant the pardon. So that's what happened.
That can make me vomit, that whole thing.
Yeah, I just wanted to put it into perspective.
I didn't see that in the New York Times, but that's something that I'll first I want to throw my salute to Bluey. I liked what he said, and I want to end by where I started. I bet you those fuckers, the ACLU, approved of the whole thing. I land my plane.
So, Jules, really, the next time you come up, you should let us know what you really think about the ACLU. You shouldn't be couching it in euphemisms. Just let us know straight out.
So I will.
Okay, thanks. Old Raj, followed by Hasana.
Thank you, Gary. I think the last two commentators both were highly useless in their comments and completely off. I notice how Jules likes to bitch among.
Well, wait a minute. Let's say with the exception of the endorsement of my article on Substack now.
With the exception of the article and endorsement on Substack.
Thank you. Now you may continue.
Jules bitched and moaned about how we need to deport criminals, and yes. Were the two people that were shot in the last 2 days criminals? I think the answer is no. They weren't even targeted. I mean, the insanity continues, and I have to ask how many innocent people do I have to die before people start getting upset and start protesting? I think it's a load of shit, Gary, that people nip and tug and chew all the way around the issue. Nobody bites. It was appropriated three months and a week ago, so 100 days ago.
A lot of money, too.
$20 million. And nobody can give you an answer as to why they don't have them. Nobody. You know, you lost the crazy bitch out of South Dakota on this job.
Question as to why I don't have cameras. The bill that would have specified they have cameras got held up over masking. Masking 100% of the time be part of the bill, meaning there would never be a point where ICE agents could wear masks, despite the fact that there are some times when they actually get the bad hombres, the people Trump was really talking about, the folks that Obama deported, who were criminals, smugglers, sex traffickers, where you do need to wear a mask. That bill couldn't get agreed on because the Democrats wanted masking all the time. Answer to your question.
Yeah, but the money was appropriated first week of April. We're in a
Yes, sir. No, you're right about that.
and what are we waiting on? I mean, and also, what states do have? We're not going to get an independent investigation on these crimes. On what I for the federal government. They're not going to release or share anything. I mean, the whole thing's a shit show. And I'm going to tell you, we'll have more people that are going to be killed on this. And I guess nobody cares. I mean, Marshall's brought it up. He's brought it several times. But I don't understand the passiveness of Americans that just sit there and go, oh, I guess they're chattel. I mean, I guess that's just the price you pay for going door to door. Also, when are we gonna have some cars with some federal your car? You're gonna sit there and do nothing? I mean, there is no focus. There's no understanding. Were they investing in? Because in both cases, they ended up with the wrong people anyway. And Gary's right. I mean, the 47 days is a reason because it was the 47th president. He ultimately reduced it, or as I tell people over and over again, he may not be doing it, but Stephen Miller sure is because he's our de facto president on every topic. With that, I'll land my plane. Thank you all.
Yeah, there's no federal law with regard to the states on cops wearing body cams. In every state, according to Customs Signals, which does an analysis of and is an advocate for actually traffic on this. There are several states with broad statutory mandates with regard to body cams. Those happen to be mandates, California, Florida, Georgia, Nevada, and Utah. But there are states without statewide mandates altogether. So it's like Maine, Michigan, Massachusetts, Idaho, and Mississippi. It's a mixed bag is what it is, old Raj. But so I don't know whether we should compare them not putting body cams on their cops, like in Steve's community. I don't know whether they have body cams, but it's a very small community and they may not be able to afford it. If it's left up. They were given and mandated to put the cameras on, and I get the sense as well they have been obfuscating every time they've been asked about this. And only today, field office during any operation be wearing a body cam. One. As a start to the program. That's a slow rollout of the program. Is it by design? I don't know. Is it because of the statutory limitations caused by our do-nothing Congress, as Marshall suggests? Could be. Hasana, followed by Linda. Hasana. Linda, followed by Moose.
Hi, everybody. Is I didn't know them to approach people on the street and ask them are you a U.S. citizen? Were you born here? Just randomly stuff. Have done other people demanding to know, it's just bizarre to me. I'm like, that's none of your business, I don't carry my passport with me everywhere I go, or my birth certificate. I do carry my driver's license with me, but a real ID doesn't necessarily mean that you're a citizen. So I'm like, why do I have to prove that to you? I think it's just bizarre. My siblings live in St. Cloud. They're naturalized citizens. So is my stepmother. And they live in St. Cloud, Minnesota. ICE cause. But if you, I get what and people, like, you know, you're committing crimes, you gotta go. Like, you absolutely should not be here. If you're coming into this country and committing crimes, you gotta go. But as far as, like, coming after, like, the person that's been here for, like, 20-something years, and they overstay their visa, I don't know. I feel like it's just kind of overkill. And I think some cases, too, there could be some compassion there, because I try to put myself in another person's shoes. You never know what could happen, and you have to flee and leave your country for different reasons. You know, people come here for all reasons to, you know, usually better themselves and contribute to the economy and be a productive member of society. I mean, I definitely want people ideally to be legally here. I think there are some circumstances that happen, but I don't agree with, like, rounding people up and things like that. It's just kind of scary, and that's all I want to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
Were promised for the better part of 40 years that the law would be enforced. And the law doesn't make an exception. The law says if you're here without documentation, you are here in contravention of law. Now, normally that's processed as a civil matter, right? But sometimes it could be processed as a criminal matter, right? And I think, like, you have a lot of people, I wouldn't say myself included, because I live in a place where I'm right next to Mexico, and we have lots of folks that are undocumented. But I think you have a lot of people on the right-hand side of the aisle that say, no, I have to obey the law, and if I get well, if the law says you're not allowed to be here, well, guess what? You're not allowed to be here. And that sucks. It sucks that you've been here 20 years. It sucks that you've been but I think you have a lot of people on the right-hand side of the aisle, again, not myself, but a lot of people who say to themselves, well, there really isn't an excuse for this. The law says you can't be here. That's what it says, so you got to go.
Well, here's a mitigating factor to that argument, and it comes from the Republican side of the aisle. You know, they created this problem, or this administration created this problem. If you want to in a legal manner, correct?
Yeah, look, I think there should be some allowance for this, right? Yes, the government is supposed to go before some sort of immigration court before deporting them. Right. Unless they have permission otherwise. And there are conditions under which expedited removal is legal.
Right, but in general, you have to go before an immigration law judge.
Yeah, in general, you have to go before an immigration.
The deportations. So when the president returned to office, there were 726 permanent immigration judges. The administration, they fired.
Yeah, they fired the people that would do the jobs. Agreed. I don't disagree with that. They made it so that it was harder to get it done. Like, that's not something I disagree with. They absolutely.
No, you're not. I'm not saying that you're disagreeing. I'm not.
Audience when you guys have.
Okay, I'll get to you in a second. So between 100 and 115 judges, that the administration deemed too lenient or unaligned with this mass deportation agenda, gone. An almost equal number of experienced judges, this is or accepted buyouts due to plummeting staff morale and pressure to fast-track cases, which I will point out in case people are second time. So by early 2026, according to NPR, the active judge corps had plummeted by roughly a quarter, dipping courts lost more than half of their judges, and two courts, and those courts were running on skeleton crews, and two courts were closed. So how can you say on the one hand, we're going to get rid of these people? Yes, we're all in favor of that. But in reality, you make it more difficult to get rid of the people. How do we reconcile that? I think the problem is
his time in his presidency was more serious than the Trump administration is. And then if the Trump administration were truly serious, they would have copied what the Obama administration did. From what I understand, the Obama administration at this time in the and they did it without shooting people, and they did it without people dying. So
I think one of the problems is that the public is fed by people like me, I guess, a steady diet of headlines. Willingly to swipe left and swipe right, and we got enough information in 3 seconds. That's what we're training ourselves, and our children, it's going to be even worse. They're addicted to
look and read articles which are longer than a paragraph. And even if that's supposing they can get through the paragraph.
So because we've conditioned ourselves, and it's study it, they tell you if you're interested in getting people, you need the dopamine fix. That's your intent by the numbers. If you look into the actual analytics, you'll see, yeah, people are watching your video, but they're not listening to you. So you have to grab them in the first 3. I do this show completely wrong. Welcome to the Critical Thinking Forum. We're here Monday through Friday starting at 5 o'clock. Today's topic is, I already wasted 5 seconds. You're not supposed to do that. You got to get right to whatever. That's what I'm telling you, that's what all the analysis says. So when we
my own man tells me about the radio.
So when the president says that sleepy Joe Biden allowed all these people across the border, I'm not allowing them across the border, and I'm going to kick them all out. I'm going to kick them all out. Well, you can say that in a short period of time, and people get that. But people don't know what I just explained here. A lot of people don't. Immigration judges making it more difficult to get people out of the nation. Now, why would you do that? If your intent is to really get people out of the nation, but what you really do impedes the ability to get people out of the nation, why?
I don't know. I would surmise because you don't actually want to get as many people out as you say you do.
And why would that be?
Because those people are critical to things like infrastructure.
I disagree that that's the reason.
Why do you
I would like to propose the reason is you need a foil.
Yeah, that's true. You need somebody you can point at, as the American president said, as the American president with Michael Douglas says, we'll find somebody to dislike, we'll find somebody to tell you
In many instances, the foil were the Jews.
yeah.
Okay, you can't do that if you're the president of the United States. He doesn't accuse.
No, I'm not talking about the Jews. I'm saying,
Can I make my
scapegoat.
points before you respond to the point? So in other lower in contributing to the crime rate, but the crime rate is lower discussion on the national level will be
When I was in county, I had a couple of contracts up in Boston.
Yeah.
So I was up there several times a year.
Alan got stuck on the air by mistake. So that's what is going on here. I'm proposing that the president is it to go back to Jules' example of a migrant who commits a heinous crime like rape. That was his example. Why is it if an illegal immigrant and it's not just a national story. The national story is it's not inaccurate. The story is 100% accurate. How come if Jules or Gary commits the rape, it may not even be a local story, much less a national story? What makes that a national story? Why is it so important to beat the drum and talk about every time an illegal immigrant is driving a 100%. But what happens if, God forbid, when Steve was driving a truck, he had done it? Would they say, "Oh, naturally born American citizen killed somebody"? No, they would not. to see the trees because out headlines and slogans. And Jules is not incorrect. He's absolutely right, and it's worthy of our attention that if that illegal immigrant had been in the country, then that rape wouldn't have occurred. He's 100% right about that. That's true. There's no question that that's right. But to take it out of proportion, if in fact
because they wouldn't give him the answer he wanted.
Exactly.
He wanted, the answer he wants is that everybody has to go. The answer they were giving is just kind of incompetent at doing some of that stuff.
Oh, it's incompetency.
No, I think some of it's incompetency, not all of it. I think some of the immigration stuff is intentional cruelty. I think some of the immigration stuff is intentional incompetency.
Yeah. Gary, I have a question. If you don't think it's on
We'll get to you in a second. We'll get to you in a second, Daniel. I want to give Alan an opportunity. Alan, are you back with us?
Yeah, sorry, I was wondering if you're gonna call me when I was gone. A lot of stuff. You heard me last time. I got caught in the border of Juarez and El Paso. Best of my knowledge, very calm. About the law, or somebody just came up and said, unleash these people on people. I'm not aware of it. I don't, sorry, my knowledge is zero on that.
I'm not exactly sure I know the question, but yeah, it's somebody based on their looks. The court has ruled yes, they do. They have the right to do. They can racially profile. I believe the Supreme Court basically ruled that they can. Daniel, followed by Andrew.
the Trump administration could accomplish between now and the end of the term would be 2 million people. So obviously that's not going to make much of a dent in whatever number we would agree, let's say around 14 million. So what does America do then?
I'm sorry. Your question eludes me.
Well, the idea is, I understand it. Okay, let me reframe it. The idea is, I understand. Like the best number that could be achieved by the Trump administration is deporting 2 million people. Let's say we could disagree exactly what the number is, but let's say for the sake of argument, we decided on 14 million or so, 14 to. And suspension of civil liberties and everything else you can argue about. So at the end of the Trump administration, that's all you can get out is some 14, 18%, whatever that number turns out to be. What are you going to do about all the rest?
Yeah, well, I mean, you're not going to get rid of all of them, is your point. That's your argument, your question?
Yeah, question which leads to that obviousness, right? But it really comes down to an ownership by posing it as that, right? Because it's fine to say in theory, well, everybody has to, follow the law and everything else. Like, these adjustments, what the law of the people that are here, right? Why not start with that? It's like, oh yeah, we'll get everybody out and then start over. Well, that's 10 or 12 years from now at this pace, if you can even keep it up.
Keep it up. And for sure, after this administration ends, who knows what the policy of the next administration is going to be, right?
Exactly.
And we've been very, very inconsistent in our approach to this issue, as we have been inconsistent in our approach to many issues.
And this is a worldwide thing, to be fair to America, right? Like a worldwide thing about how immigration and cultural God forbid, we were starting another country, we would want people to come to it, right? It's like we'd want to be able to absorb as many as we can sustain and support, not start with how do we get rid of everybody. That's not, again, this is going to prove it from the question I was asking, basically, which is, here you have
was canned as
that feeling to do so. And I think that's evidenced by the fact that out of the 17, I guess it's 17 now, 16 of those investigations were summarily quoted as being justifiable prior to any investigation. So if you go in with that mindset, then it's no wonder that I think many of these agents may think that they're invulnerable to that direct othering. I mean, I've heard the word people used quite a bit here when speaking. Drug dealers and murderers, and they eat cats and dogs. So when you use that sort of language, feels about these quote unquote people, and their want to remove them. But I like Daniel's point that you can only get rid of 2 million or so, and what do you do with the rest? But also with the courts, reducing the courts. If you want people to be terrorized, and I'll use that word intentionally, then you reduce those court systems so that they don't get a fair hearing. They don't get in front of the due process that is afforded. That detention center. People are in. You just had another person die being transferred to othering of people. If they're not people in your mind, then they don't deserve any considerations. And this is the situation that you now have in the United States. I would be interested, Scott had mentioned that 65% of Americans find this distasteful, and I would be curious as to how that falls in terms of the political demographics vis-a-vis Republican versus Democratic. Anyway, I'll land there, and thanks, Gary, appreciate it.
Thank you, Andrew. Often used by authoritarians. There have been a lot of good authors that have been writing on this, and I put a link in the chat, which lists a lot of books from New York Times Review. But like Ruth Ben-Ghiat is one of them that and wrote a great book about the time period between Eastern Europe, and Ann Snyder is probably one of the leading speakers and analysts and scholars of this area, and I think if we look at it, we can learn the warning signs, learn from it, learn what to avoid, and when you have a president that talks about people and dehumanizing terms. That sets a mood. That sets an agenda. That's how, when my family had to flee from the Russian Empire before, religious persecution and all kinds of targeting and discrimination against Jews. So we came to the United States, and that is something that is a rise of strongmen, authoritarians, fascists. It's just part of the values and ethics. I was raised to believe that all of us should be anti-fascist, that we should fight fascism. And in corruption of the language, to somehow make it out like I'm the villain if I'm anti-fascist is bizarre. It's like 1984 type Big Brother redefinition of language to suit the person. By people that are anti-democratic, that want to consolidate, and there's no single term for fascism, but and there were fascists before Mussolini, but they weren't. Mussolini kind of created the modern term of fascism, but
why are you injecting fascism into the answer it? Are you trying to attach the label of fascism upon ICE?
I believe that yes. I believe that and let me finish. I believe that the climate, that the culture, that whatever training they got or didn't get, the leader authoritarian style, the mood that is set from the top. When you look at Bovino,
What exactly is the mood set from the top? Because it's Tom Holman is setting that mood, and Tom Holman has served 5 successive presidents. So what exactly is Tom Holman saying that makes it fascist?
Okay, there was a culture that was set during the Trump 2.0
you have people that are up armored. They are armored as if they're going into Fallujah. They are armored. They had been armored the entire time they have been serving, even under the Obama administration. They were up armored. Not like
Yes,
like
they
today.
wore bulletproof
Not like
vests.
today.
They
And they
wore
weren't wearing
guns.
masks. They weren't hiding their identities, and that is presumptively a bad
And they partially hide their identities when they go after criminals who have drug cards.
Okay,
And on this matter, in jurisdiction where I live.
heavily armored equipment, which ultimately resulted in the revocation of some previously provided tactical gear. But, William, contain yourself for a second, please. But to suggest that this is fascism that we are seeing, it's one thing to say, I don't like the manner in which ICE is operating. But when you throw in the term fascism, and the popularization of the term fascism with regard to Mussolini, you are talking about early 20th century Europe fascist movements, right?
That was where the term was really put into our language, was from Mussolini, but it existed before Mussolini, and there are species of it that have existed after Mussolini, like Stalin or Mao.
Okay, so if you look at the Britannica fascism overview, and I'm going to read this to you, and you tell me whether you truly believe this applies to the actions of ICE. According to the Britannica Fascism Overview, fascist movements prioritize the collective nation or race over individual liberties. Is that what we're...
Wait. Britannica is giving, and you're asking me to respond to a multi-point article, so you're going through it one by one, and I would say, and I would have to read the nationalization, the vermin, the language that's used,
By ICE?
by Trump and by the leadership.
Wait, now you're claiming that Trump's a fascist.
No, that's not what I said. I'm saying that the language
Well,
that
you're
he used.
implying it.
No, I'm not implying. I'm saying that the language, when he talks about people as vermin, when he tries to dehumanize people as groups, when he dehumanizes
That's
Haitians.
implying it per your previous comment. You are implying he
I'm
is a
stating it
fascist.
directly that
Okay,
is
then
great
did
used
you
by
check?
fascists. And if you want me to respond to a multi-point article in Britannica, which I haven't read, I can go through it point by point, and maybe we should do a room where we all read the article in advance.
No, I don't want
Discuss
to
it.
read the article point by point with you, William. Let me give you the Merriam-Webster one-sentence definition of fascism. Can we do that?
We can see if it applies.
That's exactly what I want to do. Let's see if it applies. Fascism is a far-right, authoritarian, and ultra-nationalist political ideology. It is typically characterized by a dictatorial leader, strict societal and economic regimentation, militarism,
militarism, and the forcible suppression of opposition. Does it apply?
Okay, if you believe that things can exist on a spectrum, and that the one.
My question is a simple question. Does
The
this
simple
definition
answer
apply?
is that their definition of fascism have been incorporated into the culture of the people who are governing our country, and in particular running ICE.
So,
And if you look at the authors,
Tom Homan is a fascist. Tom Homan is a fascist.
I didn't say that. I'm saying that there are
Then
elements.
they're not fascists. Then they're not fascists.
You always like to speak in things exist on a gradient, and there can be a backsliding towards something.
Okay, but if you interject the term fascism, I'm just asking you to back it up and not say there's a spectrum, maybe it is, maybe it doesn't apply to that. Is this a fascist organization or not?
Let's look at specific behaviors.
William, wait. I did not interject the term fascism. You did. I'm asking you whether you are labeling ICE a fascist organization. Yes or no? That's all I asked you.
I am saying that ICE is incorporating attributes.
I didn't ask you that.
I'm not saying
Why
that
do I ask you one thing and you answer another?
They don't fit the Merriam-Webster definition.
No, you're not.
No, that's not my answer.
Then you answer
Putting words in my mouth. I can answer. I am saying.
No.
I'm not. You're
You know what?
putting
You're
words in my mouth.
obfuscating, William.
You're putting words in my mouth. I'm
No,
saying.
I'm not putting words in your mouth. You're obfuscating. Yes or no? ICE fascist, or you're not. I'm not arguing that it is or it isn't. I'm just asking. Are you attempting to call ICE a fascist organization? Are you? Either you are or you're not. I'm not asking you about the spectrum of the definition of fascism. I asked you a simple freaking question, and I can't get a simple answer.
You know it's not
Is it-
black and white.
I think I'm talking dark and not you. Oh, well, it may be misty. Is it raining or not? I just wanted a simple yes or no. That went on for over 5 minutes, arguing something that I never even brought up, that we were discussing one thing, and then people time that hijacking came from the right. This time the hijacking came from the left. I try to be the most accommodating moderator on Clubhouse. I really do. I try to be accommodating, but I lose my patience over this nonsense because to hijack the conversation. I think
Hijack. It's not.
no. Are you trying to label ICE fascist or not? That was the question. The question wasn't what the spectrum of fascism
He said it was nuanced. He said it was nuanced. It's not black and white. It's not a yes.
The question, the question of whether he was labeling them fascist is not nuanced. Why? Or am I speaking a different language?
In his mouth.
I'm not.
No, he was talking about it being fascist. Come on. It's not that difficult.
I'm not arguing that they are or they are not fascist. I'm asking him, stand up and answer my question. Are you saying they're fascist or are you not saying they're fascist?
Because he was willing to say Donald Trump was fascist, so you should be willing to say I'm fascist. Fascist or not fascist.
The question,
and if you're going to accuse them of being something like the brown shirts, then you should actually have some proof for it.
Well, the point is, I asked a question, I wanted an answer, and I'm going to be a prick from now on.
Well, Gary,
I'm not going to put up with this bullshit anymore.
Gary, the article you read about the fascism, it's exactly Iran's government. Go for it. You did a great job.
Yeah, I'm very frustrated today, doesn't show. Folks, we're here 5 o'clock New York time, Monday through Friday. If I've recovered by tomorrow, we'll be back at 5 o'clock.
No, he didn't close it this time.
Oh, look, we're back. Another exciting episode of the John Kitover podcast.
Okay, so forgive me. So show me. I asked you to show me. Like you asked me to show me the search. I did the search for 5
Your meeting is about removing the current people from Gaza.